Hi, so today we're going to be looking at graphing equations using x and y intercepts. Really, before we start, we need to make sure we understand what an x and a y intercept is. So it is exactly what it sounds like. If I have a line down here in a coordinate plane, my x-intercept is really anywhere that my line defined by my function is crossing my x-axis. So if I notice there's one spot on this line that's crossing my x-axis, same thing for my y-intercept. There is one point where this line is crossing my y-axis, and so I would label this as my y-intercept. I'll label it like that. And then I would label this as my x-intercept. I'll go ahead and label them. So there's not really anything we know about these specific points because it's just an arbitrary line. But there is one thing that we can say about these points. If I'm looking at this graph, what is one thing that I can definitively say about this point right here that I have on my y-intercept? What's one thing that I can say about it? The one thing that we know for sure is since it's on the y-axis, that means I have an x value of 0. Right? Because if this is x equals 1, if this is x equals 2, this is x equals 3, it stands to reason that on this y-axis, that's when x is equal to 0. And the same goes for my x-intercept. What's the one thing that I can say about this point right here? Well, I can say for certain that if my y-axis is counting by 1s and 2s, and here's 3, here's 4. If that's the case, then I just have to count down and realize that along this x-axis, my y value is actually equal to 0, which is really helpful for me because now I can go back to this equation here and I can say, okay, here's what I've learned. My x-intercept is when y is equal to 0. And my y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. Whatever this line is, I know that I can find, if I have the equation, I know that I can find the x-intercept simply by saying, well, y is equal to 0 at the x-intercept, and x is equal to 0 at the y-intercept. Here's how we do that. So let's take our equation. We have 3x minus 2y equals 6. Now let's go over here and let's solve it for the x-intercept first. And as we already said, at the x-intercept, we learned from this graph that no matter where the x-intercept is, I know that y is equal to 0. Well, let's just plug that in now. So if I have 3x minus 2y, but now I'm saying y is equal to 0, my equation is going to look like this. 3x minus 2y, which is 0 now, is equal to 6. So now if I just combine like terms, I do some multiplication here, I have 3x minus 2 times 0, which is 0, equals 6. And so I can rewrite that as 3x equals 6. So if I divide both sides by 3, I get x is equal to 2. So what that tells me is that when y is equal to 0, x is equal to 2. Which means that I have a point of 2, 0 as my x-intercept. Same thing goes for my y-intercept. So I'm going to kind of draw a line here to keep it separate. My y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. Again, over here in my picture, if this line is crossing at the y-intercept, it's when x is equal to 0 that it crosses the axis. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x here. So 3 times x, but now it's 0, minus 2y equals 6. And so let's do some algebra. I have 0 minus 2y equals 6, which 0 minus anything is just the anything. Okay, and so if I divide both sides by negative 2, I get y is equal to negative 3 as my y-intercept. So again, what does that mean? That means that when x is equal to 0, y is equal to negative 3, which that's an ordered pair, and I can write my ordered pair as 0, comma, negative 3. So these 2 points that I just solved for are my x and my y-intercept. Now, all we have to do is create a graph. Let me make a little straighter of a graph there for you. Create a graph. And let's plot these 2 points. So I have 2, 0 as a point, so I'm going to go over 1, 2, and I'll plot this in red right there. And then in green, my y-intercept is at 0, negative 3. So down 3. Just for simplicity's sake, let's make this look nice. Goes down, it goes 0x down 3, where y is negative 3. And now I have 2 points on a linear equation, which means I can draw a line right through these 2 points. And so this is my line, and I would traditionally label these 2, 0, and then the point 0, negative 3. So this is how we graph an equation using x and y intercepts. And I hope this helps. Have a nice day.